Welcome, everybody. We are live for day 3 of the Trifecta of Wealth. Today, we are jumping into what it means to build a movement. And yesterday, we talked about your brand. The day before, we talked about the power of your voice. And what we're building right now is the Trifecta of Wealth. So if you are joining live right now, I want you to grab a notebook and a pen. You are definitely going to want to write some notes today. I'm giving you some key notes on how to bring your movement to life. And I want you to remember what I'm going to be sharing with you today, because it is the difference between you having just a business that exists online and you having a legacy that exists in humanity. Okay, so there's a difference between having a business online and having a movement that exists in humanity. Before we get into today's content, I want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek. We are going to be revealing what the full VW Legacy Friday offer is. So I pray these last couple of days, it has just given you so much value. And even if you stopped here, I trust that there's something that you can take with you to continue growing your momentum. But if you really want to take everything I've been saying the last couple of days and apply it to your business and your life and truly build a real long-lasting breakthrough, this VW Legacy offer is going to be the pathway to do it. So I'm going to be revealing that at the very end. I want you to stay tuned for that. And before we jump right in, I'm going to give you a few seconds to grab your notebook, your pen, and just drop a 1 in the chat for me if you are someone who has thought about having a movement, if you've thought about having a membership or a collective space where your people can gather and represent your mission. Drop a 1 in the chat if that's even crossed your mind. Maybe you have one right now. I've worked with many entrepreneurs who have big movements, but they want to grow them. They want to create more intimacy within them. I've also worked with a lot of entrepreneurs who are stuck at a certain level within their movement, and they want to go beyond just the average numbers of like 10, 20, 30 people. They want to get into the hundreds and the thousands. So what I want to remind you, if you're typing a 1 in the chat right now, is that isn't just a desire. That is a call to action. And I don't know who needs to hear this, because I did not plan to start here. So I don't know who needs to hear this. What you're experiencing right now and wanting to have a movement is not a desire. You would be crazy to want that. The responsibility it comes with, the legacy that you're going to be carrying that it comes with, the strength that it requires, the vision that it requires, the discipline that it requires to truly steward a movement is wild. So if you're truly typing a 1 right now, or you're watching the replay and thinking to yourself, I've seen this before. I've seen this. I sense that my brand is not just something that's online. It truly is a movement that's meant to exist in humanity. That is a call to action. And you know that that call to action is from God when it requires His help to get there, and when it glorifies Him in the process. If it doesn't require God and you're not mentioning God at all and doesn't have anything to do with Him, then you might still have a call, but it's not from God. And it's important to remember and have the discernment to distinguish between the two. Because there's some people who are saying they've been called to do something that God never asked them to do. I never really felt in my own flesh, my own personal will, that I wanted to have a movement. It was just this call that kept following me. It was this thing that kept knocking on my door. So stay on if you are feeling and sensing that in your career right now, in your business right now, and in the way that you are building right now. The trifecta of wealth is not about money. It's about creativity. I want you to draw a triangle on your piece of paper right now. And at the top of that triangle, you're going to put your voice. Your voice is the first ingredient of the trifecta of wealth because it is the foundation. Without it, nothing can come through. That's why in the Bible, in Genesis, it says that the Lord spoke and things were created. So as an entrepreneur, as a creative entrepreneur that's building a creative legacy, you need to have a voice that masterfully brings life and certain things into existence. And I'm pretty sure I have lipstick on my teeth. So let me just get that. Okay, there we go. We gotta get it. We gotta get it together. So your voice is at the top and everything trickles out from that. On the left side of the triangle, I want you to write your brand. Your brand, what we talked about yesterday, is a striking story that is threaded to your name. It is the creative legacy that leaves an imprint. Then across from that, at the right side of the triangle, I want you to write down your movement. Your movement is something different than your brand, but it's connected to your voice and it's connected to the story. But without the voice, you cannot have a real brand and you absolutely cannot have a movement. And there's too many of you that are tuning into this live right now that are trying to create a movement. You're trying to build a brand, but you have not spent any time developing your voice. And I'm not talking about your messaging. I'm not talking about your sales pages. While that definitely plays a role in your voice, I'm talking about your skill and your ability to speak and bring a room to breakthrough. No other coach is going to tell you this because this is a skill that a lot of people haven't spent time investing in. But when you look at the billionaires, the millionaires, the real true wealth builders and creatives, they all have one thing in common. They are masterful at communicating. They are masterful at speaking. So why you buy from them, why you keep investing your time and attention, why you keep showing up has really little to do with the product or the service. It has everything to do with what their voice makes you feel. When you go to conferences, when you go to events, when you're listening to YouTube videos, when you're engaging in certain content, you don't realize it at the time, but it's their voice that keeps you coming back. So I want to remind you that everything I'm talking about today, you can have it and know it is information, but you will not be able to bring it through and follow through with it without a voice. Every movement needs a voice. Every single movement needs a sound. And that sound hopefully traces back to you. And you hopefully are connected to the Lord, connected to God, so that everything is on His behalf. So let's dive into why a movement and some of the benefits and the payoff of having a movement. In the last 4 years, I've been able to see some incredible results in my business because I focused on one thing. I chose volume over velocity. While the entire industry became hyper obsessed with speed, I became hyper obsessed with volume. While everyone was trying to triple and double the number in their bank account, I was focusing and studying and trying to understand how to triple the number in my movement, how to triple the number in my programs, how to triple the number of people that I could serve at one specific period of time. And what I learned in that choice is that when you choose volume over velocity, and eventually you have both, but first you'll choose volume over the velocity, you're going to have to slow down first to speed up. And what happens in slowing down is that your leadership gets sharpened in a very specific and unique way. When people ask me, how do I increase my capacity to serve more people? Or how do I have time and the capacity to teach hundreds of people at a time or be responsible for thousands of people in 1 month sometimes? The answer that I tell them is not what they would conventionally hear. It has nothing to do with increasing your emotional intelligence. Or I won't say nothing. It has little to do with increasing your emotional intelligence, and it has more to do with increasing your emotional availability. Write that down. Your emotional availability. You can be plenty emotionally intelligent, but very emotionally unavailable. My ability to lead and steward thousands of people and also steward a body of work that represents something and steward a legacy comes down to my capacity to be emotionally available for humanity. The more people I can love at one time and genuinely care about, the more people I can lead. But what most entrepreneurs make the mistake of thinking is that if they make themselves emotionally available, then they won't be taken seriously anymore. They won't be exclusive. They won't be cool. Most of you have been taught to be hard to reach. Most of you have been taught that to build a luxury brand, one that stands out, means that you have to be kind of behind the veil, that there needs to be an air of mystery between you and your audience, that there needs to be this sense that they don't really know you, that they can't relate to you, that they can't connect with you. And that because of that elusive, mysterious energy, now they're going to buy from you. So a lot of you have actually built walls between you and your impact. And there's no way for you to make an imprint because you're not emotionally available to do so. I always use Beyonce and Taylor Swift as an example here because in culture we see it all the time. Beyonce and Taylor Swift are two of the most well-known brands on the face of the planet. You can walk into any room across the globe and say their name and people will know who you're talking about. You can even play their song without ever saying their name and people will know who you're talking about. You can put one of their products in the room and people will know exactly who you're talking about. You can go across the nation and put their music on and people will know who you're talking about. One of these women is emotionally available. One of these women is not emotionally available. Beyonce is emotionally unavailable, but she's incredibly emotionally intelligent. Her brand has gone so far. You can build a global brand and she absolutely has a legacy and there's so much impact that goes with it for many other reasons. But when it comes to emotionally availability, Taylor Swift is much more emotionally available. You can feel it in her music. You can see it in her writing. You can sense it in her storytelling. Whereas Beyonce wants to be experienced, Taylor Swift wants to be remembered. Where Beyonce has created a brand that you can watch and connect with on the outside, Taylor Swift has created a brand that you can walk inside and truly connect with face to face with her, or at least you set it up where you feel like you are. Taylor Swift is speaking directly to her people, while Beyonce is allowing her brand to speak on her behalf. Both are beautiful ways to grow, but one has a lot more connection than the other. And for many creative entrepreneurs, this is a path that brings much more fulfillment because you're truly connecting with people in a way where they are never going to forget you. There's going to be such a memorable bond that you build. So when you're looking at building a movement, it's not about increasing your capacity for more money. It's not about increasing your capacity for creating more. It's about increasing your capacity and your enthusiasm for serving people and being in a real relationship with them. It takes skill to remain emotionally available while also boundaried and connected to your own sense of identity. So there's no part of me that is overspilling and oversharing and, I have boundaries all the time. I don't feel like I have to respond to every single DM, but there's many of you that I've had personal conversations with, even at this level of my business. And I've had peers tell me, why don't you just hire somebody out to do all that? And we do have somebody to help in the DMs, but there's many times where I still respond myself. I always want to be able to talk to my people because I know the minute that I stop talking to you is the minute the movement dies. The minute I lose connection with you, the minute the movement doesn't fully have the same value. Because the value of the movement is not the money. The value of the movement is you. And you can feel that and you can sense that when you're in my brand. And that is what I want to teach you how to build. This is the gift of turning your audience from a viewer to an advocate. It's taking your audience from someone that's watching you to being an advocate of what it is that you're sharing and representing. The payoff of this, when I first started my movement, the House of We, which is one of my brands where we teach you how to build a peaceful relationship with money and we keep God at the center of the whole conversation. When I first started that 4 years ago, I didn't have a big audience. And not a lot of people knew my methodologies. I had to take a lot of time to introduce it to the marketplace. No one at the time was really talking about body and money and definitely not talking about, kingdom wealth and God and how money plays a role like that. All these different connection points, I didn't see anyone else talking about them. So I spent a lot of time in the beginning just educating people on my methodologies. Yet I knew within my bones that there was within me a body of work that would reach and impact thousands of people and through that impact would leave an imprint on the industry. Because that's the shift, is going from just making an impact to leaving an imprint. And as I started this movement, it really was just me. I was the first member of the movement, and we had 4 walls, and I believed in it, and I represented it to the best of my ability. That grew within our first year to our first 100 members. After that, I saw, and I did all the numbers from the last 4 years, we've had over 1,000 members circulate through the membership. And through our masterclasses, our breakthrough quizzes, our content, we've been able to impact over 10,000 people. Flash forward to today, the House of We stands alone as its own legacy, its own movement, its own brand. It has its own voice. It contributes to 86% of my recurring revenue. It also has grown 30% year over year. And we're about to cross our 7 figures within the membership itself. This is monumental because this is the type of offer where I don't have to show up to it every single day. I don't have to clock in and have 1 million private clients. I don't have to be on the phone all day. I don't have to be in trainings all day. I do have a training right after this for the House of We, ironically enough, at 4. So I have to end this live at 3:45. But this is an offer, a movement that happens because I've built it that way. How does it happen without me? Is because this isn't a movement that's built on my back with me alone. This is a movement that has thousands of advocates connected to it. So regardless if I'm talking about House of We, I know there's hundreds of other people talking about House of We. That's the power of building a movement. And the fastest way I've found in building a movement is starting a membership and having an offer in your product suite that builds passive revenue and continued revenue over a long period of time. This is one of the fastest ways to build wealth, one of the fastest ways and most fruitful ways to grow your brand. So what we're going to talk about today is building a membership. Drop a 1 in the chat if you've thought about building membership, or if you have a membership right now that is either underperforming or you know could have more people in it and it just simply doesn't. I'm going to be talking to you about what this actually looks like from a business perspective, because a membership is more than just an offer. You have to start looking at your membership as a movement. I don't recommend everybody start a membership, because if you aren't ready to lead a movement, then you're not actually ready to lead a membership. And I'd get into a whole bunch of this inside the offer that I'm going to reveal, but I'm going to give you kind of the basics here. Let's look at the ripple effect of advocacy. So all the numbers I just shared, 10,000 people, 86% of my recurring revenue, House of We makes 5 figures a month. So I wake up every day knowing that 5 figures a month is coming in. Without me launching anything new, doing anything new, that is the power of having an offer that is built on legacy and performs with or without you. This is also an example of what I was talking about yesterday, where you are having an income generating offer, meaning the offer is generating income for you versus you always having to be the one that's generating income through it. So I'll talk about that on another live. But everybody, if you're really truly here to build financial freedom and wealth, you're going to need to add this offer into your product suite. And I'm going to show you how. So let's write down and start to go through what an advocate is, because this is important to know why I'm using this terminology, because it's going to help you shift the way you're looking at your audience and the way that you're engaging with your audience. An advocate is a person who publicly supports and recommends a particular cause or policy. So this is a person that is publicly supporting something of interest. So if we look at House of We, there are thousands of you that publicly support and recommend the House of We to other people. So when your audience member goes from, and let's look at what an audience member is. An audience member is a spectator or a listener. Like really, when you look up the word audience, it is a listener at a public event, such as a play, a movie, concert, or a meeting. And if you think about your content is like a mini TV show. It's like a mini thing that they are engaging with for a temporary period of time. And they're going to just spectate. There's a lot of people who spectate my brand, who they're just spectating, they're listening. Some of you that are on this live right now, you're spectating, you're feeling things out, you're watching, you're engaging with it. However, you're not an advocate of my brand yet. And my job is to turn you from an audience member to an advocate. And the easiest way to do that is through the brand and the voice. So you can see you cannot create a movement because you cannot have any advocates if you don't have a voice and you don't have a brand. A brand is a vessel that gives someone something to agree with and belong to. And then when they belong to that brand long enough, they are now an advocate of the movement that that brand represents. So when you join the House of We, you are not just joining a membership, you're joining a movement that is committed to changing the face of wealth as the world knows it. You're joining the only faith-based money membership on the marketplace. You're joining a movement that centers God and is empowering women of God to trailblaze and build legacies that are 6 figures and beyond. You're becoming a part of that. You're not just joining a membership. Nobody wants to just join a membership. People want to belong to something. They want to be an advocate of something because advocacy creates community. It creates conversation. When you go out to lunch with your girlfriends, what are you talking about? You're just advocating for a bunch of stuff. You're advocating for this, you're advocating for that, you're advocating for that piece of clothing, you're advocating for that brand, you're advocating for that person. That's all you're doing in conversation. Think about the last lunch you went to, the last group setting you went to, the last phone call you had. All you're doing is advocating for stuff. So that is the gift that you have to start to utilize in your brand is where am I turning my audience member from a spectator, a listener, to an advocate, someone that is going to publicly share and invite others to join this and or just share their personal experience without me prompting them. Let's look into what this means on a larger scale. Like how do we actually take this and make it real? So I have an analogy that I like to teach when it comes to a movement. It's called the masterpiece of a movement. And I teach this inside the offer that I'm going to reveal for Friday in much bigger detail where we go through it step by step. But I want to give you a sneak peek today, and we're going to look at this through the 5 elements. So there's 5 core elements to creating a movement. All right. Now, if you think about a movement within the realm of art or dance or even a painting, paintings and art is designed to do what? It's designed to move the person who's viewing it and experiencing it. So a movement has 5 different elements. You can write these down if you wish. It has the rhythm, it has lines, it has color, it has balance, and it also has space. All of these combined together create the masterpiece that then is the art or the dance piece or whatever it is that you're experiencing. So on the outside looking in, when somebody views the House of We or they watch my brand in the marketplace, I want them to feel like they are watching a dance unfold. I want them to feel like they're watching a piece of art speak to them. I want them to sense and feel like they are watching a movie or a cinema unfold before their eyes. And you can tell by the way that I move things through the marketplace that it's all very intentional and they all include these 5 elements. So let's start with element number 1. This is the masterpiece of a movement. Rhythm. Rhythm is the repetition or flow that guides the viewer's eye and creates harmony. Harmony is what bonds people together and allows them to actually feel safe to occupy a certain space. So where there is harmony, there is going to be a sense of safety, a sense of, I want to unpack my bags here, a sense of, I want to stick around here, I want to see what this is about. When there's rhythm, there's consistency. You can't have rhythm without some sort of consistency. And most people think that consistency is just every single day, but that's not actually consistency. Consistency can be 3 days a week, every single week. Consistency could be every single Monday. Consistency could be every single Sunday. But you cannot have rhythm and you cannot have a movement without some sort of consistency. So as it relates to your online business, you have to start creating consistency through posts, through live streams, through engagement to build that trust and familiarity with your audience members. They will never become advocates if they can't consistently understand what they're advocating for. And for some of you, you are changing the consistency of your movement so much that no one can actually even get a grasp on what it is. You're changing the brand so frequently that no one can actually build trust with it. You're changing your voice so frequently that no one can remember what you actually sound like. You just sound like whatever the marketplace sounds like that day. You just look like whatever the culture looks like that day. You just continue to be like whatever is working for the market that day. But when you actually choose consistency, you are choosing to set yourself apart and do something different in your own rhythm and in your own way. So without rhythm, you cannot have a movement. That is the baseline. Let's keep going to the second element. And I'm going to go through these fast because I have to get off this call at 3:45. So the next element is lines. Every single art piece, every single masterpiece, every single dance has lines that you're following. Lines they guide the viewer's focus and attention. And what you have to recognize if you are building an online business is that you are an orchestrator of attention. That is the main currency that you are circulating. All we're doing on this app is playing with attention. All I'm doing on this live stream right now is playing with attention. Why do I move my hands like this? Why do I speak in these different structures? Because I'm building lines with my voice. I'm building lines with your attention so that I can guide your focus and guide how you're viewing and experiencing this present moment. So every movement has lines associated with it. A prime example of this would be your messaging and your storytelling. Your striking story, that brand, is a line that directly connects people to your vision. So for the House of We, yes, we have the movement that is the membership, but there is a striking storyline. Why do you think they call it a storyline? Because it guides you to connect with the vision that the movement represents. So that striking story of bankruptcy to 7 figures, being on the park bench to having a breakthrough, which I told in the last launch, the passage of wealth, all those were lines that guided you to the offer. And if your story is not doing that, then the story is going to be like a zigzag line. It's going to be like up and down, up and down, up and down. Or for some people, it's just a whole bunch of lines going like this. And it doesn't direct the user or it doesn't direct the viewer to do anything. It actually directs them to leave. Some of you are building lines in your movement that actually tell people to leave. And we have to start to skillfully build out our messaging and articulation and our stories to actually direct people's attention. If you can't become a conductor of attention, you're never going to become the builder of a brand. If you can't conduct attention, then you're not going to be able to steward a movement. You've got to start to increase your capacity to direct people's attention. And the only way to do that is to become genuinely invested in their desired outcome and what it is that you're here to support them with. Third element is color. Every single masterpiece has a tone and a color that actually brings emotion to whatever it is that the viewer is experiencing. Even black and white is a color. So the primary role of color is to evoke emotion, and color is one of the fastest ways to create memory. I'll never forget one time I was in therapy and I was creating a vision or remembering something. And then I remember the therapist at the time said, now add color to it. And if I look back on that moment, what she was basically doing was now make it a memory. So whenever we add color to something, we actually make it more memorable. And think back to your own memory bank. Color adds memory because color adds emotion. Every single color represents a specific emotion. It has a specific wave of energy to it. So when you add color to your movement, all you're doing is you're adding emotional energy to it. You are bringing value to it, whether that be faith, empowerment, joy, abundance. Like for example, on the House of We side, it's faith, it's freedom, it's fellowship, fortitude. Those are the colors of our brand. And each of them evokes a specific emotion that makes the movement more memorable to the person who's experiencing it. If you look at this from more of an online business perspective, using compelling visuals, starting to make declarations that resonate emotionally with your audience, that all adds color to your movement. When I say there's no resistance between you and money, that adds color to the movement. When I say we are here to change the face of wealth as the world knows it, God leads, body calibrates, mind follows. These are all statements, yes, but they're statements that specifically evoke emotion and adds color to the movement, which means it makes it more memorable. Fourth element is balance. Balance is what ensures that every single element works together seamlessly. So most people think that balance means that everything is equal, but what balance really means is seamless. So it makes all the different elements, all the different pieces seamless. So when you look at the trifecta of wealth framework that I built, for example, these are three completely different elements, three completely different boxes, but the way that I've balanced it out and I am communicating it makes them all work together seamlessly. So what I'm going to teach you is how to create that balance in your movement so that you're not just being a movement that educates, but you're a movement that has a seamless sequence of content that educates, that inspires, that entertains, that speaks, that masterfully bridges breakthrough and allows your audience to feel like you are truly taking them on a full scope of a journey. The last element is space. So this is the fifth and final element of building a movement. Space, if you think about it in the realm of art, gives the composition breathing room. And it gives the viewer a second to focus and fully receive the integration of whatever you're talking about. So you'll notice when I speak just now, I took a second to pause. I'm bringing space so that you can actually digest everything that I'm saying and integrate it as you're experiencing it. For some of you right now, though, space actually scares you. You feel like you have to continuously throw more at your audience to try to convince them to be a yes, and it's actually turning them into a no. It is impossible to make somebody go from a no to a yes. That's not the purpose of your brand, and that's not the purpose of your movement. The purpose of your brand is to build organic desire between your audience and your offers. The purpose of the movement is to create an environment that gets them excited to buy. Whenever I talk about the movement that is House of We, before I ever even mention the offers that we have within that movement, people are automatically excited to buy because the movement creates the environment for them to get there. And I have to give them space. I have to be comfortable with letting things be open and not always need to fill with giving them more reasons to buy. I don't need to give you a reason to buy. You will come up with your reason to buy. My job is to make the solution for the reason you already have to buy very obvious. Every single one of you, the last time you bought something, nobody gave you a reason to buy it. And if they tried to do that, you will automatically rebuttal. So if I tried to convince you to buy based off of reason, we would be in a battle all day long. But if I gave you space, and I just made my solution the most obvious choice that matched the reason you already came up with, now we're in business. So for me, for example, right now, I already knew, so I just invested in a mastermind, for example. This is a perfect example. I already knew that I wanted to invest in a mastermind. Right now, for me, the most valuable spaces are intimate, high-level group mentorship. I love private mentorship, and for a season in my business, it was all I wanted to do. But now I'm really looking for other entrepreneurs that are performing at the same level that I am or beyond and are going to be expanders in my life. And I want to start to connect with people in person. So I want to have a mastermind that has some in-person stuff where I can really be with the mentor in person. I can be with the other attendees in person. I want to be on the ground. I want to be in bigger rooms where in-person stuff is happening. So I already that's my reason. No one came on my page. No one convinced me that that is the reason that I should buy a mastermind. I came up with that reason myself because I, as a leader, am very clear about what it is that I want to buy. And you are the same way. You already know what you want to buy. you already know the reason why you want to buy it, and you already know when you want to buy it. So I already knew that before the end of the year, I wanted to invest in a mastermind, and here's the reason why. So I came up with that myself. Now, all I'm doing as the buyer is looking for the person who makes it more obvious than ever that they are the match to my reason. So I saw the mentor, and this is funny because I already knew I was going to hire this mentor. When I first heard him speak a couple years ago, I was like, I'm going to work with him. I knew it in my bones. I was like, I am going to work with him. And sure enough, 2 years later, I've invested in some of his other smaller stuff. I was like, this is the year where I invest in the mastermind. So I ended up on a call, did like a private like VIP thing. And at the end, I knew that the mastermind was going to become available. Not once did this person convince me to buy the mastermind. Like, you couldn't convince me. I already knew I wanted to buy it. I just needed to know that they were available. They were open for business. Now imagine if they spent all the time that I was with them for the week trying to convince me that I needed a mastermind. I would have been so turned off that I'd be like, never mind. I don't actually want this. Imagine if they didn't give the space for my reason to exist in the room already, and then just make themselves the more obvious yes. So they didn't focus on trying to convince me. They focused on giving me creating a compelling environment to buy. That's what their job is to create an environment that's fun and exciting and compelling to buy in. So that's exactly what we're doing here. I could just announce the VW Friday Legacy offer. But I want to talk to you. I want to connect with you. I want to give you value. I want to create an environment where it's actually fun for you to buy. I want to create an environment where you're actually feeling connection. There's people who have been connecting on these lives. I've been connecting with you guys in the DMs. I've been connecting with you in my emails. There's an environment that we're creating, and that environment is not being filled with me trying to convince you and throw reasons at you to buy. This environment is starting to be filled with connection in the movement. So what I started to sense before I was going to invest, I was like, wow, this movement, this environment exists with or without me. And that right there was the spaciousness I needed to be like, I want to be a part of it. But when your audience and your clients can smell that this doesn't exist without them, that you're actually waiting on them, it turns the entire thing upside down, and you're no longer actually a safe or valuable company to invest in. You're just not. Because that means the entire relationship relies on the client versus your leadership. And so space is one of the most powerful ways to provide your audience with an opportunity to add their voice into the room and to share their wins and to bring their creativity to the movement. So if the whole time all I'm doing, again, is just filling, and trying to convince you, there's no value there. And then if there's no value, there's no room for you to add your voice. Like, even right now, we have people saying this is so powerful. We have people sharing certain things. You guys are emailing me after, you're sending DMs after. That means you're adding your voice into the room. That means I've created space for you to speak. I've created a conversation with you. I didn't just create this thing where you're sitting there and I'm like throwing things at you. I've opened up a pocket of exchange for us to be in relationship. So the fastest way to start to create space in your movement is to use open-ended questions and to start to understand how to build community. Even in these 3 days, we've built a little mini community. In every single program, there's a community. So your movement is not just this huge, big thing. It's the pockets of community that exist within it. So that's the final element. And when you have rhythm, consistency, and you have lines, clear pathways that direct people's attention, color, when you have emotional resonance, balance, harmonious sequential content, and space, empowerment, and an empowering environment, you don't just build an audience. You start to create a masterpiece that inspires advocacy. You start to create exponential growth, not because you convinced anybody to join you, but because you created an environment that they were excited to belong to. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens with skill and strategy and a deep understanding of people and marketing. So that's exactly what I'm going to teach you how to do inside Membership Mastery. I'm going to teach you the A to Z. And when I tell you A to Z, I'm talking like I take you from the very beginning so you could start from scratch to your first 100 members. I teach you how to build and take you behind the scenes of creating a 7-figure membership, aka a movement. This has been hands down the best decision I've ever made was to start my membership. The best decision I ever made in business was to start my membership. And so I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that. We've had people who have successful memberships with 500 people go in there. They've straightened up their systems. They've increased the way that they are enrolling people. They changed the branding. We've had people who don't have a membership at all who started from scratch in there. The students have been raving about it. And so Membership Mastery is coming back next year. And when you get into the VW Legacy Friday offer, you are getting that included. So I don't know if you're catching on to what I'm putting down, but the VW Legacy Friday offer includes vocal codes, Membership Mastery, and the darkroom. So you're getting over $5,800 worth of value for the price of one program, $2,500. You're getting 3 programs for $2,500. This is absolutely bananas and insane, which is why I'm opening the doors on Friday and closing them on Sunday. There's going to be limited spots available. And if you're on the VIP list, you're going to get early access Friday morning. So make sure you're on that list if you want to get inside. The first program that we are going to be doing within this bundle is Darkroom. So we'll be hosting Darkroom in December. Then you'll have vocal codes in January, and then you'll have Membership Mastery in the spring. We're going to do it sometime in March. So you will have a full half a year with me through this bundle alone. And the best part about the bundle is you're not just getting programs that you're sitting and watching. You're joining live programs. Like I teach vocal codes live. I teach Darkroom live. So you're not just getting stuff that's pre-recorded. You're actually getting living, breathing programs that you get to be a part of. All right. My phone is at 9%. I don't know what just happened to this, the color on this phone. My phone's at 9%. I got to hop into the House of Lee to do a training with my members there. But it has been so fun being with you guys these last few days. If you aren't already on the VIP list, make sure you hop on. The link is in my stories, active right now. And then the VW Legacy Friday offer is going to officially go live on Friday morning to our VIP. And then later that night, it'll be live for the public. If you're like, I want to watch the replay for Trifecta of Wealth these last few days, just drop replay below. My team will send you the link so you can watch this off the app and get the maximum viewing pleasure. And I pray that this blessed you. It opened your eyes and got you excited for what you're going to be able to create in 2025. I will see you so soon. Bye, everybody.